Hello, everyone. Happy New Year to you and yours. This is a little bit of a different scene today. I'm house sitting for a close one. So, today I want to talk to you about aspirations. Aspirations. During this New Year's time, we oftentimes find ourselves making resolutions. Aspirations are generally a topic that, although very adjacent to resolutions, are sometimes not described very often in uh, our Western world, and not really described very much in sort of a way of the Western ideal of getting a lot of things accomplished. Aspirations feels a little bit more dreamy, whereas a resolution, for example, feels very resolute. It feels very willful and dominating over the world around us, like we will absolutely essentially be able to accomplish something. So we make these resolutions so we'll be able to do that. Aspirations, on the other hand, are things that we aspire to do, but we also recognize that we might not actually be able to accomplish them. And why I want to talk about this subject today is because what we'll find is that aspirations are much more in line with our actual world around us versus resolutions that, as we all know too well, we make them at the beginning of the year and then within only a few months, we have given them up again because the world around us doesn't conform. We have other competing tasks, for example, other competing priorities, and our resolutions fall by the wayside. So, how can we realign some of these things, some of these heartfelt desires, some of these heartfelt resolutions that we really want to make for the year, but align them in a world where it's okay if we take a pause from them. And that's really what the word aspiration, this idea of aspiration that I'll be describing today, really is all about. So, first of all, an aspiration and the distinction of an aspiration, I've kind of already talked about a little bit of that, its distinctions. But aspirations really are things we aspire to do, things we aspire for, and generally they're things that we want to accomplish, but we also recognize, sort of like right now, I'm aspiring to do a good video, but at the same time, I didn't recognize that my furry friend here would be joining me, even though, of course, as a cat, of course she would be. So, how do we integrate these aspirations uh, together? How do we work with all of the world around us, such as my kitty friend here being with me, to also achieve this aspiration of having a moment where I'm talking to you? And so, aspirations generally can be something that we hold in our minds, in our hearts. We start with these are things that we really want to achieve. Now, usually around New Year's times, we might think that aspirations and resolutions have to be aligned with maybe personal health or maybe having a year of affluence, for example. But oftentimes, too, it's maybe refocusing our lives to have more time with family, maybe less stress. These are all things that we might want for this new year. And how can we achieve those in a way that if we maybe miss a day or we struggle through a few days, we don't leave them behind? And this is really starting with the idea of making uh, an aspiration, aspiring for betterment, either through self betterment or bettering our world or having more time with loved ones or more compassionate moments. But also recognizing the fact that the world doesn't really conform to our ideals. We might have an idea in our head of, the six pack abs or whatever that is, or maybe it's really these perfect family moments that we want to have in the next year. And because of the circumstances, those moments might not come to pass in the way that we might think. So, how we can integrate that reality into our minds is by recognizing that from the very beginning. We can aspire for a healthier life, aspire for a more affluent life, or a more compassionate mindset with family and friends, more time of relaxation versus work, for example. And then what we can do to make that possible is, rather than forcing something new in our routine, there's been both science in the cognitive behavioral therapy as well as uh, wisdom traditions in the East and the West that really focus on mindfulness. And again, mindfulness can be dreamy a bit, or it can be maybe something that feels very heady or difficult to accomplish. But really, all that is being recognizing the present moment, and then recognizing our aspirations, and recognizing also which aspirations we really, really want to achieve. And so, oftentimes we have competing resolutions, we have competing priorities in our lives. And competing, this competing nature to what we really want can become actually quite pressuring. It can create a lot of self pressure and difficulties in our minds, where we feel like unless things are perfect, or unless things are an ideal that we really, really think is perfect, or think is, our absolutely narrow box of what should be, we feel like we've failed. Yet, there's nothing in our lives that's ever an ideal. Everything is magical. For example, I had no idea that my furry friend was going to come up and show off for you during this video. What a magical experience that just was. And that is how our aspirations can then integrate with the world around us. Possibly, we might, for example, if we're trying to become in better shape this year, which I myself have that aspiration to get into better shape physically, and also, you know, fostering a healthy lifestyle in terms of diet and exercise. And I have a vision of that, right? I have maybe I have some weights at home. Possibly, I want to do some more lifting of the weights. But what might end up happening is that as I'm going through my life, I'm not near the weight machine, right? Right now, I'm at one of my loved ones' homes, house sitting uh, our beloved kitty here. And in that moment, and in that place, in this place, I don't have my weight machine, but I can still foster a healthy lifestyle. I can still maybe go for a walk around this beautiful neighborhood that I don't get to spend much time around. That's something I can do right now. And so what's really, I mean, not right now, but in the next 5 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever that is. And so what's great about mindfulness and bringing into this present moment the aspirations is, if we can bring in our present aspirations into our hearts, into our minds, and also recognize what our core aspirations are versus some of these things which are nice to haves but maybe aren't core, then when the world is in flux and we are called into different circumstances, we might be able to have a moment of finding time to do the thing that we aspire to do. versus something that's very strict and resolute. And also, if it doesn't get accomplished in exactly the way we want and exactly the time frame we want, we might just abandon it. So, when we bring our hearts and minds back to the present moment right now, we might find that we have a lot of aspirations for the year. Possibly, if you've been watching our other videos, is to live a more mindful, wise, and compassionate life. It could also be to practice more spiritual traditions. It might even be to have meditative moments. And if we have moments in time for that, that is very strict and able to be accomplished, that's wonderful. But if we don't and we find ourselves whipped around by the whipsaw of life, going from thing to thing, which is so obviously the case, we can also find our aspirations right there with us then. So, for example, if you want to live a more compassionate life, you don't need to run off to the mountains to go achieve that. You can do that right here, right now, with whoever is around you. In this case, it was my kitty friend. If I was not aware or mindful about the fact that I want to be a compassionate person and feel a heart bond with my furry friend, I might become quite annoyed that she was here with me right now because I have to be doing this video with you. Yet, because that aspiration comes before anything else, my core aspiration is to become more compassionate, is to become more mindful and more aware. And actually bringing that mindfulness, awareness, and compassion wherever I am is the fulfillment of that aspiration. And then it doesn't really matter if I'm such a great meditator or if I'm such a great practitioner of any spiritual tradition. It's really just about the here and now. It's really just about spending time just wherever you're at, recognizing whatever's around you, and then living within your core aspirations. So, the way that the spiritual masters have really laid this out is that the core, the most important nugget for us is compassion, awareness, this combination of compassion and awareness. If we have that as our very core aspirations, then all of the other things that we wish to accomplish will become manifest almost naturally. Uh, Even, living a healthy life, for example, because if we're really compassionate and aware, we're going to want to stick around so we can help more people for longer. If we're mindful throughout our days, we'll make sure that we're going to do the healthier thing little by little, for example, because we don't want to abandon those who rely on us, for example. Additionally, we'll also want to be affluent, but that will come in a balanced sort of way. We won't fixate on affluence at the downfall of our compassion, for example, which can so often happen in this modern world where we're so caught up in how to make money and we feel like we have so little of it. Instead, what we'll be doing is focusing on how we can create a better world for others, and then that in itself will create uh, more affluence for us, both because we'll be a better employee, for example, or business person, or spiritual guide, or whatever that is, and we'll be able to money will kind of flow towards us. And if it's not actual money, it might be clothing, it might be warmth, it might be food, it might be shelter. And so these are the types of things that we can engage in. We can have aspirations that are very, very related to this worldly place we live. Like, building strong muscles, for example, and being healthy, as well as bringing more affluence into our lives, and also potentially going on more vacations and all of these types of things that the 21st century Westerner really feels is important based on our societal construct around us. So we can still do all of that. But again, if we have it in an aspiration setting, maybe we'll take a trip to a place where someone might need us. I actually recently did a trip to Detroit and had never been there before, and spent some time with some dear friends of mine, out of an aspiration to be with them because there's health and other types of challenges there. So being there with them was the fulfillment of aspirations of compassion, uh, but also it was a vacation because I was also in a new place and I experienced some really amazing different parts of that region that I would have never experienced before. So there's all ways to integrate again these aspirations that are more connected to 21st century American society, but again, integrate them into the core aspiration of awareness and compassion, which are the two things, which are really actually one thing, that will benefit the mind and keep the mind healthy, calm, relaxed, and also motivated to undergo all of the challenges that this year is going to throw at us. Which, if the previous 10, 20, however many years it's been, has taught us anything, it's that this year will not go the way that we expect. But that's okay. We can definitely endure that if we hold on to our core aspirations and then make new aspirations that, again, we mindfully integrate into our core purpose on this spinning globe. So, thank you so much. Wishing you a very, very happy new year. I hope something I said in this rambling, somewhat distracted video will help you and resonate in some way as you begin your January, begin your new year. And the last thing I'll leave you with, which I recently received a brief teaching about, is that even though this is the new year, from a societal perspective, this actually isn't really any different. I mean, the days are going to get longer if you're in the northern hemisphere, but it's not really any different than anything else. You can always change your aspirations, especially um, these non-core aspirations. These will change almost naturally too, as the conditions around you change. For example, if you have a new child, that's a totally different aspiration conditions there. You're going to be really quite different, or potentially you'll have different family challenges or family opportunities, romantic opportunities, romantic challenges, financial, career, etc. So all of these things will also change you. We're always in flux and changing, and we're being changed also by the conditions around us. And in so doing, checking in on a regular basis with these aspirations is okay. They the ones that aren't needed can fall away, or cyclically circle back. It's okay to lose sight of some as long as you hold on to your core aspirations. So, thank you again. Wishing you all the best in the year to come. Uh, Long life, happiness, prosperity, joy, as well as compassion and awareness.